Okay, hi everybody. What a great morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Aron from Blue Raven Farm. I wear a lot of hats these days. I'm an agroecologist. I'm a farmer. I'm an educator. Okay. So I've been a farmer for the past 15 years full time. My first 7 years as a farmer was spent at Oregon State University Extension Service, where I practiced just a really standard conventional organic farming. So annual tillage and NPK applications. And I'm really excited and so thankful for that time because it was like the springboard for where I went next. When I was with OSU, I had the opportunity to visit lots and lots of farms. I was running a farmer apprenticeship program for them. And part of that, we were visiting lots of farms throughout the Willamette Valley. And I would say the first 30 minutes of every farm tour was focused on tillage equipment. And then we would go out and we would do a tour. And I was like, the weeds are still such a hardship. And yet like farmers are really like bought into this like acceptance that weeds are just part of the gig, who feels like weeds are part of the gig, right? So I just kind of held this question in my mind and in my heart of like, there's got to be a different way to do this. And so I left the university in 2017, and we had previously purchased 5 acres of land in Corbett, Oregon. So I was kind of like observing and building this farm slowly before I officially left my like jobby job to farm at Blue Raven full time. And the goal from day one was, how do we do things differently? And soil health information and knowledge, I just want to like remind everyone that it's just not, it was not what it is today. So my lessons were really, really hard won. So we're celebrating 10 years at Blue Raven this year. Woot woot, very exciting. So here's just an overview of our farm. I was very over ambitious with slides, so let me know if I start going over. So we're a 5 acre farm. We're an 1.5 acres in intensive vegetable production, 1/2 acre in annual veg, 1/2 acre, or excuse me, 1/4 acre in pasture raised hens, and about 3/4 acre in a mixed orchard. Our market ranged anywhere from 40 to 60 CSA members, and we ranged anywhere between 80 and 400 pounds of salad per week. Per month. And that really depended on how much of a crew that I had. When we were doing 400 pounds a month, I had a full-time salad person, which was really fun. And then we've always done a winter CSA. So this is breaking ground in 2016. I love this photo because it really shows how red and rough our soil was. It's really come a long way since then, which is very cool. I went right into I didn't know, I just did a single species cover crop. I know so much better now. But like I said, like information just wasn't what it is today. So went right into cover crop. We had no pollinators when we first moved there. I did trial runs of winter squashes and summer squashes and cucumbers and different things like that. And like those fruits just never developed because there was no pollinator. So this was my attempt at like build it and they will come. And now we have such an incredible diversity of pollinator species. It's wild. I was pretty ambitious. I went right into a winter CSA that first year. Horrifying, but it worked out pretty well. I just felt like, hey, we're doing all the right things. Like this should work out. I had a lot of trust. I think I would be a little more fearful today, but it worked out. Fast forward a couple years, because we only have 20 minutes. You can see the soil is already starting to change color. We only did 2 years of pretty light compost applications. And from there, we just have replied on root exudates and roots in the ground and crop residue. That's been our plan. Our soil organic matter started at about 4.5%, and we're sitting at 9.5% today. Hey, thanks. Ooh, thank you. We set out from day one to focus on soil health, as I mentioned. I set production standards pretty high, probably unreasonably so. I just felt like, hey, this is a 180-degree turnaround from how I was farming before, and that didn't go so great. This is going to be awesome. And oh God, we just got buried in weeds and pests and disease. I was shocked. Our farm had not been a farm before. I just felt like we should have at least gotten a freebie year. That didn't happen. So our first 3 years, we really, really struggled. And it wasn't really until years 4 and 5 that the pieces of the ecological puzzle like really started to come together. The diseases that we once had were no longer weeds. We have weeds, but we just don't have weed pressure. Per season, we were spending maybe 10 to 12 hours per season weeding. That's not a crew, that's like actual hours. And then in 2021, the heat dome came and it fried our soil and it really set us back pretty hard. And it took a couple years for me to really, first of all, like understand what happened and what the impact was on our soil. Our soil microbial community it really just didn't have the resilience that I wish that it had. So it took me a couple years to really figure out what happened and then how to fix it. It wasn't until I was listening to a soil scientist who specialized in soil restoration post-fire. I was like, oh, yeah, that's what happened to my soil. It was just so hydrophobic. So I figured it out and we recovered. I love this photo. This is carrots that had never, ever been weeded. You can see our soil structure is pretty stellar. I feel really thankful. It's taken a lot of time to get here though. So what's the equipment that we use? I don't think I could farm without a flail mower. It is by far like the most used piece of equipment on our farm. We use it for mowing crops, mowing cover crops. I use a BCS harrow at a maximum of 2 to 3 inches just to really ensure that I'm not wiping out soil microbiology and the whole profile. I know that Doug talked about that today. So yeah, resonate with that practice. We use a BCS rotary plow, really aggressive on the soil, but use it just for digging potato trenches and raising beds. We use a paper pot transplanter, so that helps to expedite transplanting. This is the type of BCS mower I have. It's called the Blade Runner. It's a little bit different. I always want to call it the Road Runner. It's cool because it cranks down or high. So I will toggle between like a high mow on cover crops that I want to grow back versus like crank it all the way down because we're on a raised bed system, I'm able to do some tickle tillage with the tines actually in the ground by like 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. I have a photo of that coming up. Oh, here it is. This is my favorite standard bed flip, 2 passes with the flail mower. Like I mentioned, we're on a raised bed system. I've talked with folks who have attempted this without a raised bed system and don't get this beautiful effect. So I can transplant right into this. This was a buckwheat oat cover crop, and it just breaks down so quickly and easily. I'll just transplant right into this. Our lowest maintenance bed flip is just a tarpon thyme. This was winter squash that I did not even flail mow. I think I must have been really tired that season. It was probably 2021 after the heat dome, the year that almost killed me from farming. And I just threw tarps over stuff, full crops. And it's remarkable, you know how much vegetation is on a winter cover or on a winter squash crop. And this is all that was left. Very, very cool. Very quick and easy bed flip. All I had to do was just throw amendments on this and rake off some of that little bit of a debris and plant right into it. So this is absolutely the gold standard of no-till, which I don't think I mentioned. Like I was pretty dogmatic about tillage the first 5 years of our time. So yeah, so that's kind of our first 5 years. We were one of the first no-till farms in Oregon, and at a time when I think most folks were saying that no-till was not possible, that you couldn't be productive, you couldn't be successful. A lot of haters out there, had to listen to a lot of that over the years. And yeah, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. There was so little research. And so I tarped a lot. I know Doug wants me to talk about tarping. I tarped a lot those first couple of years. And these last 5 years, it's like, how do I ditch that? There's so much labor to move 100 by 20 foot tarp that's covered in water. And I primarily farm by myself. So that I just like, how do I save my body? How do I save time? And how do I improve? Instead of this tarp that's not photosynthesizing and improving soil, how do I grow diversity? How do I have roots in the ground as much as possible? So we've moved to a diversified cover crop system as much as possible. So this is one of them. So come a long way since that monocrop of crimson clover that we saw. So this is 8 different species or 8 different families of crops, all summer, winter kill, going backwards. And that's what that looked like after it winter killed. So much beautiful mulch. And yeah, so what does our farm look like today? It's a little messier than it used to be. I have a lot of buckwheat and oats. Those are kind of my favorites. They go to seed. They do. I try, but they always end up going to seed a little bit. So I had this situation happening in our beds all the time. There's little pokey throughs of buckwheat and oats just kind of everywhere. And honestly, I just love it. We're utilizing cover crops in the spring, in the summer, and overwintering. We're experimenting with 6 to 8 different families. Really fallen in love with this spring sown cover crop, which is going in you know, early April and being terminated in June, which is so perfect for that July planting window for fall and overwinter. I have experimented with crimping, 2 farmers, a T-post, and a tarp. So if you're doing farmer crimping where it's just farmer weight, you have to have a tarp. No matter how good it looks like it lays, it's not enough weight. I've learned the hard way. I've crimped something and I was like, oh, I don't need a tarp for that. It's beautiful. It just laid down. It was gorgeous. And then over the course of 3 days, it starts coming back up. I'm like, oh no, gonna like crimp it again and throw a tarp on it. Summer winter kill cover crops are one of my favorites. I'm doing so much work around those right now because it's just such an incredible opportunity to reduce tillage. We just end up with this beautiful amount of carbon and biomass that breaks down over the spring, and at the very least you can rake it off and throw it into your pathways. All of our seed on the farm is inoculated with biology, and we utilize trace mineral spray across the farm, both cover crops and on our crops, every 3 weeks. This is what the 2 farmers in a T-post and a tarp looks like on the left. And then on the right, that's what that looks like transplanted. It's a beautiful system in theory, but the slugs are fierce. So I ditched that. So yeah, we're 10 years into this journey. I just feel like these three circles and the broken tricycle are kind of what I live by. I feel like it's so like biology is driving the system. Biology is driving the soil structure in our soil. It's driving the nutrients in our soil. Like without it, like that's the broken tricycle. And just being really mindful about our management is everything, right? We are the ones that are often causing harm. So how do we minimize and mitigate that? So I'm always asking, like, how can I do something with a shallower pass of tillage or one less pass? Like, how do we, it's not about no-till for me anymore. It's just like, how do we optimize? I do a lot of testing and then round everything out with tissue analysis so that I know what my plants are actually taking up. I mentioned we do trace minerals as a foliar spray. And yeah, diversity not only in cover crops, but in the field. I haven't really been able to get more than 3 families per bed. This felt pretty triumphant. I'm like, okay, yeah, lettuce can go everywhere. It plays nice with everybody. Onions you can throw in like a scallion, short season. And then those things come out and the tomatoes are just there. Recently, I've started playing with just running the Jang cedar with like a 3 species blend cover crop down the middle of these long season crops. It works really well. So I love that. Just constantly experimenting and trialing. So yeah, my mindset is just context is everything. No 2 sites, no 2 seasons. Not even 2 different fields are the same on our farm. I constantly have about 100 different questions in my mind that are always unanswered. I feel like I get like a few answers a week and I just keep at it. Soil is so complicated and complex. And I think that's why we're all here. We love it. The curiosity is amazing. Dig holes. I heard that today. I was so happy. Dig so many holes. Fill them in when you get done. They can be a tripping hazard, but you really just can't judge a book by its cover. I've seen beautiful cover crop that's 2 feet tall with root systems that are only 2 inches deep. Like, and the farmer had no idea. It's like, you got issues. Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. I just have 2 more things to say, and that's it. Yeah. So I mentioned, I was pretty dogmatic about tillage in the first 5 years, and I've just really let that go. Like, how do we scale up this work? And like I said, it's really about how do we optimize tillage and how do we create less, as least amount of damage as possible. And that's it. That's all I got. Thank you. Question. Yeah. You repeat the question. Yeah, I will. So the question is, we use a lot of cover crops and it looks like we have a lot less residue. How do we manage that? It's time. Yeah, we just let it have a little bit of time. And I also will utilize the power harrow at times to just kind of incorporate in a little bit. Yeah. With the summer cover crop residue, because there's so much carbon and we used a raised bed situation, in the spring, I'll just take a rake and rake that off and throw it into the pathways. So I let the microbes digest as much as possible. And then when I need to plant, I'll just throw that in. It's so many farmers are utilizing mulch in their pathways to mitigate weeds. So the summer cover crops are really nice at bridging that gap, plus less labor. Yeah. Okay, the question is, so in the first few years, we had a lot of issues with pests and diseases, and then those things fell off. Like, what has changed? Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. I feel really confident in saying that what has changed is our soil health has improved. We have really good, strong aggregation. We have really strong soil microbiology. Healthy plants will resist pest and disease, 100%. So that's what's happened. It's very cool to see. Great question. Yeah. You're stretching? Sorry. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. The question is, what's my favorite overwintering cover crop? I use a mix of crimson clover, rye, vetch, oats. Oats is funny. In my climate, it will sometimes kill and sometimes it won't. So it just kind of depends on the timing there. I'm obsessed with flax. It's a highly mycorrhizal plant, has those really fabulous symbiotic relationship with mycorrhizae. So I try to throw flax in wherever. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is about biological inoculants. Are you talking about on seed? Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like our seeds are being grown in a lot of areas where the biology is just like dysfunctional or inadequate. And so we are, as consumers, getting these seed is alive, and it inherits its biology from the parents. So if it's grown in an area where there isn't strong biology, so right out of the gate, we're getting seed that isn't covered in all of that good biology. That's your plant's first defense. So yeah, I've played around with a lot of inoculants. I don't know what the permissions are to say like what we use, but I've used worm compost that I made on farm as an inoculant. And then I've also played around with some purchased inoculants as well. You got to be really careful about what you buy. There's a lot of stuff out there that isn't what it's saying it is. So make sure you do your research. It's a great question. Did I answer the question? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Phelan Pagano. My wife, Maya, and I own and operate Little Big Farm in Olympia. This is really not a great picture. It wasn't as blurry before, but just kind of, this is just a good layout, kind of gives you an idea of the size of the farm. We are we have about 3-ish acres of production space. But in terms of like garden production space, there's a little under 2 acres. This is a little bit of an old picture too. So there's some new tunnels that have been established since then. Right now we have about half an acre in covered space between hoop houses and high tunnels, and then like a little over an acre of outdoor growing space. We're a 4-season farm, so we grow all year round. Through the winter, we do a lot of overwintering of crops in the tunnels, as well as like winter carrots and root crops to sell throughout the winter. In terms of markets, we are primarily a farmer's market farm. Also, I think I skipped over, but everything we're an organically grown market garden. So everything's organically grown. We're not certified. We follow all organic practices, and we're very much in that like small scale market gardening style. We sell primarily to farmers markets, primarily to the West Seattle neighborhood in Seattle. We have a year-round farmers market in West Seattle that we attend, as well as during the summer, we do our Olympia farmers market in Olympia. We have a 120-member CSA as well, and then we also sell microgreens to the food co-ops in Olympia, as well as like a little restaurant sales, but only to chefs that shop at the markets. In terms of employment, we have my wife and I work full-time on the farm. We have one year-round full-time employee that we've had for a few years now, which has been a total game changer. We have another employee who works about 9 months full-time and then a little bit part-time in the winter, and then 2 more full-time employees for the main season. So it's a pretty small team, kind of plus or minus on the last 2, some part-time, some years, some full-time, other years, but 3 to 4 people working with us on average on most days. Yeah, so we We purchased, so the business has been around since 2016. So we're entering our 11th season now. We went to the Evergreen State College in Olympia. That's where we met and studied sustainable agriculture. While at Evergreen, we did a ton of different ag stuff, worked on internships on some farms, took some time off to work on some farms, and then ultimately worked on the organic farm at Evergreen. That was really informative for us, kind of exposed us to a bunch of different, styles of farming through like tours. We went and toured a bunch of farms throughout Washington, got to see what everybody was doing, all that. And it wasn't really until we like kind of discovered the more like market gardening style that it really clicked to us that this could be a career. There's the book like The Market Gardener by J.M. Fortier, and that totally like that was our Bible. The beginning of, and our farm still looks pretty similar to what the kind of methods that like Elliott Coleman, J.M. Fortier style of market gardening to this day. And then in 2000, we started the farm on a different site in town, and then ultimately had two small sites that were much like backyard farming kind of style. And then in 2018, we moved on to this site, which is in South Olympia. It's a 25-acre property. You can kind of tell by the picture that it's like surrounded by woods and development. There's like housing development on the other side. But we're like 15 minutes from downtown Olympia, so very much on the urban fringe. And then this property has been in ag for many years. Evelyn, the property owner, had been in hay for decades, and then Curesot Farm, another organic farm in our area, took it over and had a 5-year lease, and then we took it over after that. In 2021, she sold the property to us with a life estate. So she lives on the property, we farm the property, we live in town, and it's been working out wonderful since then. In terms of like our produce, I should probably skip ahead. Here's some good farmscapes. We specialize in kind of like high intensity, high value per square foot crops. So think like a lot of salad mixes, densely planted root crops. And then in all of our tunnels, seasonal versions of that, as well as like tomatoes and cucumbers and that kind of stuff. For the summer, we definitely have like, the standard kind of market spread, 25 to 30 crops, but definitely specialize in the high intensity, high value ones. And definitely focus on quality. Like quality is like our big driving force. From the beginning, we knew we wanted to grow super high quality produce. And that has been kind of our mantra over the years. See tons of lettuce. We grow crazy amount of Salanova lettuce, salad mix lettuce. That's our number one thing by far. And then, just some more farmscape pictures. We are definitely like a super tidy, clean, lean operation. We've over the years, the weed pressure has gone down massively. Same with the pest pressure, mostly through like we do a lot of exclusion. We use insect netting intensively, row covers intensively. And we've noticed pest pressure has gone down massively, as well as the tillage stuff, which I'll get into, has also helped with weed pressure massively over the years. Here's just some farmers market pictures over the years. So a lot of produce, some are blurrier than others, it looks like, but there's all of that. There's me at the farmers market. Yeah, thanks. So I'm trying to just skip ahead so I don't spend too much time on the markets, but there's just different pictures of the markets over the years. Here's kind of an idea of the layout of the farm. So you can see we have permanent pathways, permanent beds. The pathways are all 18 inches wide, beds are 30 inches wide, and that has and it's standardized across the board. All of our beds are 100-foot long, so all of our row covers, tarps, irrigation supply, everything is all standardized. We have like bed stakes at the beginning of each bed. So when we prep beds, we straight string them out. So the pathway space is always the pathway space, the bed always the bed. We've been doing that for 8 years on this site, and things have improved massively over the years. Here's some pictures of kind of more layout, how they look in the high tunnel as well. The beds are a little different in the high tunnel. We do 38-inch beds and 12-inch pathways, so a little bigger beds and and smaller pathways, because we actually don't primarily all of the hoop houses are done without the BCS. We use an array of like hand tools in there, which I'll get more into. And then there's the cover crops, just so you can see how they're done with the permanent pathways and permanent beds. More of that. A lot of cover crop pictures. Hoop houses, we have tons of caterpillar tunnels, we call them. They're like the smaller hoop houses. They're 14 feet wide, 100-foot long. We have like 10 of those. And then we have 2, which you've seen the pictures, 2 of the bigger high tunnels as well. The BCS. So like in terms of tillage and soil building, from the beginning in 2016, our first purchase, we got a $10,000 family loan and bought bought the BCS 749, power harrow, flail mower, rototiller, rotary plow, all of that. I'm sure it costs a lot more now, but got them all. And then we've been using them ever since. Things have definitely changed over the years. There was several years there where we were not using the rotary plow or the rototiller at all and just using the power harrow, working that kind of top 2-3 inches of the soil, in addition to like a lot of broad forking. We use the broad fork a lot kind of for that deeper aeration. And things have changed though a lot over the years. Like we have actually kind of stopped using the power harrow and there's a picture of the flail mower kind of working on a cover crop, which you guys saw earlier. Flail mowers are awesome. There's the power harrow kind of working. See, the power harrow can create really amazing beds, but it is a heavy machinery and it does cause compaction over the years. So we've actually switched more to using the tilther, which is like a little drill powered tool from Johnny's. It's probably the most important tool on our farm. Like everybody's trained on it on the crew. Everybody can use it. That's like the big thing with the BCS too, is that it's really hard to do it really well. So it's always kind of a challenge to train staff on it and get them to do it as well as, Maya and I could do it. The tilther though is easy. This is kind of like, I was going to go through some bed prep kind of stuff. This is a picture of like flaming. We do a lot of flame weeding. We do a lot of like stale seed bedding where we like prep beds, let them sit, let the weeds kind of irrigate them, let the weeds grow, and then flame them. And then here's a picture of beds broad forked, lots of broad forking. And there's I did this last week to kind of show a process. So like when beds are clear, we will hand clear a lot. We also use tarps like to clear. So like things will be in the spring and in the fall, like mowed, to put the tarp on, let it break down, take it off. And then we broad forking the beds, putting down amendments. We'll test the soil in the winter. So we have like micronutrients as well as our normal like granulated chicken manure fertilizers, putting those down by hand after broad forking. Sorry. So like we're stringing the beds, we're broad forking. That's what the picture on the left is, broad forking, and then putting down the amendments on the right. And then after that, using the tilther. So that's the tilther, a couple shots of it. It's a little drill powered tool. Like I said, it's awesome. You do it's 15 inches wide, so we have to do 2 passes on each bed. But everybody can use it, and it does a really effective job of incorporating whatever you're putting down into the top couple inches of the soil. Super light, super easy to move around. And then it's followed with raking. You can see on the left, we do have a bed prep rake to smooth out the soil. And then for some crops, the ones that want for direct seeded things and some paper potted crops, we use the paper pot transplanter. They want the bed to be a little firmer. So we have like a bed roller as well. This kind of whole range of tools that I've went over has kind of replaced the power harrow and the use of the BCS a lot. And it's really nice, really streamlined. Obviously, like having things be super clean and not having an overwhelming amount of weeds and stuff like that, it's kind of, you have to have that to be able to do all that, but it is very effective. I think I kind of skipped over it, but we started the business, like I said, using the power harrow really intensively. And then we've kind of stopped using the power harrow in replacement of the tilther, but we're also using the tiller on the BCS a little bit more. There were several years there kind of that we didn't use any tillage, but we've kind of found that in pursuit of like super high quality produce, that the tilth, the structure of the soil is really important. And that over the years of using the power harrow over again, over years, started creating a lot of compaction. And what we do now is in the spring, when we're putting down lime or like our micronutrients, like we talked about earlier today on the soil test, we will till those in with the rototiller on the BCS to like 6 inches. And that's like one pass over every bed in the spring. And then from there, it's no till for the rest of the season, except for like carrots. We do still till the carrots beds because they want it to be super fluffy. But primarily, yeah, like we've kind of moved to that kind of hybrid setup now where we're using the tiller in a little bit of places, but then no till from there for the rest of the season. Because most beds because we specialize in kind of that intensity crops, most beds get 2 to 3 plantings per year. There's the high tunnel, pictures of the high tunnels. So this is what allows us to grow, year round. We have 2 30 by 100-foot high tunnels that grow year round produce in. More pictures of the fields. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, and then in terms of like weeds and pest management, like I said earlier, these practices have really yielded to like a lot less weeds and a lot less pests. We like keeping the pathways super clean, keeping the beds clean. We use a lot of the collinear hose, which is the little, the 7-inch blade, and we sweep the farm like on every 10-day cycles. So A lot of cultivation, but it really pays off. Not too much hand weeding on our hands and knees. Yeah, another farmscape picture. And yeah, I think I just wanted to, I'm probably going fast because, but efficiency is super big deal for us. And that's kind of driving growth. Over the years, we haven't really been adding a lot of space, production space. We'll add like little bits here and there, but we've kind of found our sweet spot in that little under 2 acre range. And we're just focusing on growth through being more efficient, through having better quality, plantings and higher yields. And it's really been paying off. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it from me. I think that was the end of the slideshow. Hopefully, I'm close to 20 minutes. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah, even anytime. Yeah, I know. When I was practicing, it was either too slow or too fast. Yeah, the tilter. Yeah. No, not incorporating cover crop residue. For cover crops, what we do is we use the flail mower on the BCS and then tarp it. So we use the flail mower, and we really primarily only do overwintered cover crops. We don't do much like cover crops during the summer. So we're flail mowing, and then we're tarping with those black tarps that you guys saw earlier. Depending on what time of the year it is, it'll be different how long a couple weeks or 6 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks. We're leaving that on. And then from there, we're then putting down, stringing the beds out, putting the lime down, putting whatever other micronutrients down, and then doing that 6-inch till, letting that sit for a bit, then broad forking, putting the amendments down, the fertilizer, the chicken manure down, and then using the tilther, which is there's the tilther pictures again. Yeah, it's just like you can't really see super well, but it's an awesome little tiny mini rototiller powered by the drill. We like the one from Johnny's Seeds, love it. There's some other ones out there, but the one from Johnny's is the best for sure. They actually have a new model that just came out that's really good. And it's super inexpensive. It's like $600 for this tiller, basically. And yeah, it's really, really just for the amendments. Yeah, not even for we use it for compost too, but for most of our compost applications, I also will put that down to get that 6-inch till, because we have a really beautiful kind of sandy, dark black sandy loam. And like when we used to use the compost a lot as like a mulch on top of the beds, and I hated it because I was like, I love our native soil so much more. So we're still putting down a fair amount of compost, but we're tilling that in now these days. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Are we good?
Why do you hate it?
Wait, what?
You said you hate the compost.
Oh, just like I love our native soil so much more than like wood chippy compost, like working with like the compost. We buy bought compost, put it down as like a mulch on the bed. We did that for a while. But I just like it. Our soil is also like really high in organic matter to begin with. So compost has always been kind of like should we be doing this? Should we not? I think something I didn't touch on a lot of earlier, actually something I didn't touch on was like soil pests. Our biggest pests on our farm are definitely like symphylans, and then so underground stuff, and symphylans, nematodes, like root knot nematodes, all these things that like tillage actually kind of helps break up their life cycle. And then compost is actually making it a lot worse. Putting down compost, much higher symphylan pressure every time we put down compost. So we found that also tilling the compost in helps with the symphylan issue as well. Yeah. We did at the beginning a lot more, but not as much anymore. Yeah, they were definitely there a ton when we first broke ground on the site, but the wireworm pressure has got down a lot as well. These days, we don't see much pests in terms like aerial, like we don't have a lot of aphids or cabbage moths or loopers or anything. It's really, like I said, the symphylans, the nematodes, and several, and then like rodents. Rodents are a big, those things. All things that like really proliferated in the intense like no-till years where we didn't invert more than an inch or two of the soil. Rodent pressure was going up, symphylan pressure was going up, nematode pressure going up. So we're trying to find kind of that balance point between it all now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think just over time we've been depleting the like weed seed stock, a lot by how intensive we're growing and stuff. But it definitely still happens. Like these pictures look like there's no weeds, but there are definitely tons of weeds. But I think a lot of like the stale seed bedding we do. So whenever we do use the tiller, we're making sure that we give enough time to let the seed weeds germinate, and then we flame them or cultivate them out before we plant in. So doing a lot of like strategic things to make sure that it doesn't like proliferate over time. We're never letting anything go to seed. And just over time kind of slowly getting better and better. But yeah, of course, like every time you use the rototiller, you're bringing up thousands of new weed seeds that you're gonna have to cultivate out. So just like really sticking to that regime of flame weeding, cultivating, not falling behind. Yeah. Yeah, the irrigation. It's all like, so yeah, irrigation is all standard, like permanent in the production beds or wobblers. Like there's like Seninger wobblers. So it's like a wobbler irrigation that we have. And there's a line, they cover 3 beds on each side of the irrigation. So they're all permanently set up in the fields with permanent like valves buried, like valves, and then a buried main line. So nothing's above ground at the headers of the beds, and then it's just like a irrigation line down, and the entire farm is set up with permanent irrigation, so we never move anything around. And all of the hoop houses and high tunnels have drip irrigation as well as overhead like wobblers as well in all of the tunnels. So it's all like permanent setups, and that really aids to like the high intensity turn, like being able to get multiple crops in a year on the beds. Yeah, before planting. Yeah, like definitely in the bed prep process. We'll also like use the flame weeding, like, like even like after like a bed is done, like we clear. So like say like there's a bed of like turnips and we finish harvesting them and there's some weeds left over after all the turnips are pulled, then I'll like run the flame over that as well to kind of, even if there's going to be like a week or two before it's prepped for the next round. So the flame kind of before and after, but mostly, yeah, during that bed prep process. And like with the stale seed bedding, mostly like prepping the beds and then making sure they're flamed before we plant. We do that for every single crop. Like every crop, no matter what it is, we prep it, let it sit for a bit, and then flame it. Carrots are the only one that we do like the pre-emergence flame weeding. That might be what the person is getting to with that question, where we plant the carrots and we plant beets at the same time, and the beets will always germinate before the carrots, so we can like wait until the beets germinate and then we'll flame the bed while the carrots are germinating. That works really well because we grow a ton of carrots and they're like, as many of you know, super labor intensive. And making sure the weed pressure isn't too out of control is a big deal with the carrots. Yeah, sweet. All right. Yeah. What do we do with like the residue? Yeah, so we're very intensive like hand pulling out stuff. So it's like whatever residue is left in the beds, we're removing, putting it, and then we compost. We don't, like the big thing, we don't have a 4-wheel tractor that we're using in the production spaces, but we do have a 4-wheel tractor to mow the pasture, mow the perimeter basically, and to turn the compost piles. In terms of like residue from like cover crop and stuff like that, we just really just make sure that the tarp is on long enough to really break it down. But yeah, there's been many moments where the rye like won't go away and we're hand weeding rye out of beds. Yeah, that's definitely happened a lot. And yeah, and then like we also, as well as the black tarps, we'll use like clear tarps, like old greenhouse plastic, to do like a solarization. So we do that a lot with like arugula and like mustard greens. We grow like a lot of like arugula and then like spicy salad greens. When they're done, actually just starting yesterday was the first one of the year for this kind of warm sunny days right now. We'll mow them and then with the flail mower and then throw that clear tarp over it. And just like a few hot sunny days, we'll like fry the residue completely. And then we can take that tarp off and then just rake it up and it's all good to go, ready to plant, ready to then prep, for the next bed. So solarization that's been a big one that we've added the last few years, primarily for like the small brassica crops, so like the densely planted ones or like bok choy turnips, that kind of stuff. Not for like kale and bigger stuff. Yeah. Yep.
What size of tarps are you
Yeah, the tarps. I know, like Jen was talking about, tarps are like, you curse them, you hate them, you also love them. We really we have primarily ours, we have 20 by 100 and 40 by 100 ones. The 20 by 100 ones are the ones that we use like that we're moving around more. We'll use the bigger one for like a placeholder in the winter because, we're growing a lot of stuff in the fall and pushing the season pretty late. So don't always have time to get a cover crop on everything. So putting the, tarps can also be like a placeholder, for the winter. So we have some bigger ones for that, but the 20 by 100 ones are good. I mean, definitely like we have at least 2 people working when you move them around. 3 preferably, because like Jen said, like water getting, it's just, they're a mess. It's so challenging, but we don't use too many of the black tarps during the main season. It's really like a spring thing to kill cover crops, a fall thing for like a placeholder, and then the summer really just using those like clear ones for solarization. And then just like, yeah, that's another thing with the weeds. Like if you don't have a ton of weeds, it makes clearing the bed to get ready for the next planting so much easier. Yeah. I mean, we've like it's kind of hard because our farm, like there was another veggie farm before us on it, and we kind of inherited a lot of like the messy stuff from them. There was always been a ton of like, so like these root knot nematodes. So like on carrots, they'll like be super sprouty. And like in potatoes are a big one too, but we don't grow potatoes. But carrots are like the primary one that we see them because harvesting the roots. But yeah, it's like this parasitic nematode. We actually started last year or 2 years ago spraying like beneficial nematodes to kind of counterbalance it. And I think it's working. I mean, it's kind of hard, spending $800 on like this package of something that you're spraying all over the farm. And I don't know if it's doing anything, but I think, that's helping with that pressure. But yeah, the nematodes, the other thing with the nematode though is like carrots are the one thing that we see it the most on, but tilling like has been a big help with that. Making sure that we're using the rototiller at like a shallow depth, or 6 inches or so, before carrot plantings is big to kind of like get that carrot to get a head start before it gets that too much pressure. I feel like if the carrot is like bombarded by nematodes at the beginning, it's going to just be stunted. And we've had so many years and you're pulling up carrots that just look like a sprouty mess, but we're definitely dialing in a lot better now. Yeah, no, all observation, just like pulling up things that are like just sprouted weirdness. Yeah, and I think that's what it is. Could be something else, but so I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. Sweet. All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah, all done.
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Matt Steinman and I run Foothills Farm up in Cedar Woolley. First off, I just want to say thank you to both of you that came up. Those are amazing presentations and your farms are really beautiful. That really takes me back. So we started in 2013 officially. I'd been farming for a couple of years before that, but really in 2013 is about when the market gardener came out. And I've been trying to find a way because I didn't like using the rototiller and I didn't like a lot of the realities of growing in the soil. And when you're just chopping it up, found the market gardener was like, this is great. So for the first 7 years of our farm, it was exactly like, well, not exactly, but very similar. We same processes, same despise of tarps, but understanding of the realities of them. And yeah, it's a great method. At scale, where you have that market, it's fantastic. As we got bigger, or as the farm started to grow and as our market base grew around 2019, 2018, I started really expanding and seeing how far I could push it. We were about 1.5 acres at that point. It's very similar style to what you've been seeing in the last 2 presentations. But I wanted to expand it. I was trying to buy the land we were on, and it was a large farm, and we just needed to expand and find more markets. So I started expanding, and I got our market gardens to about 3.5 acres of beds. We had about 400 permanent beds, and it was too much. The scale was, the machines were breaking on and off. It just wasn't making a lot of sense. And so we started looking at how can we farm on a larger scale, but using these same ecological methods, because I didn't want to give up like soil health but I wanted to give up tarps, but I want to stay in the same method. And compost is getting really expensive. And so what we started doing is looking at like heavy intensive cover cropping. Because one thing I have on our farm, on our family's farm, is there's more land there. We started with 1 acre, like I said, 1.5 acres, but there is a 40-acre field that was in hay production. And so we started expanding into that, breaking the soil. And that's where we really are breaking the turf. And that's where we really got into cover cropping initially, because the first year we broke the turf, plant a bunch of right into it, and what do you get? Just tons and tons and tons of weeds. And so then we started cover cropping and doing more of it. And so we started looking at like how can I grow intensively with and really feed the soil, like we are with compost without using compost consistently. Because we have chickens, we rotate chickens on our fields, but high intensity chickens from layers and chicken tractors is not quite the same. It doesn't give you enough nitrogen. It gives you a lot of ecological benefits, but you need more. And so we started going more and more and more cover crops. Anyways, so this is a field. This is in October, late October, and this is rye, clover, vetch, and Lacey Facilia is in there as well. And so that's one of our main overwinter cover crops that we use now. And so we go in a lot of directions with our cover crops, but I'll start here with our different varieties of cover crops. Is one, overwinter cover cropping. With what we talked about, we have a Vermeer drill that we use. It's a no-till drill, similar, a lot older, but similar to what you saw earlier today. And I really love the fact of using the no-till drill, even when I'm tilling into soil that we just removed the crop off of, because you don't have to disc it, or you don't have to come out. All you have to do is mow the stubble off. You mow your crop off, and then you can come in with the drill and you can plant your cover crop seeds, and it does a good enough job in reality. Unless you have, there's some crops like Brussels has way too much weed pressure underneath, and so we might disc it once. But this drill has been really a fantastic addition to our farm to be able to add cover crops without really affecting soil structure by because usually, if you look at really big conventional organic farms, after they do their 80 acres of broccoli, they're gonna till it, or they're gonna disc grip it, and get it really nice and worked up again, and then they're gonna plant again right before the winter hits. And we'd rather keep that soil structure. So we have really utilized this a lot. It's made a big difference adding in. One of the beautiful things about a drill like these is they have multiple different compartments in it, and so we're able to do 2 different rounds of seeds, like we talked about with Doug earlier. So in the springtime, we can add a cover crop and let that cover crop. We can add 2 different seasons of cover crops. We can do winter and summer cover crops in it, and let the summer winter kill, and then we still have clover, rye underneath that to come in. So it's been really helpful in order to get in and get out quicker. Sorry, I'm going to take a couple steps back. I got ahead of myself. Our farm, at this point now, so we were at about 5 acres, and in about 2021, we really had an opportunity to expand. I had a farmer neighbor come and approach us, and he was retiring, and he was looking for a situation where he could move somebody. He wanted to find his land a good home. And similar to what we talked about here, similar to what happened, we have a living will, and we bought the land. He still lives on it with his family. So at this point, so now we run about 180 acres, with about 50 of it in production at any given time during the summer. And so the whole goal here with that acquisition that happened, or that merging of these farms that happened, is that now I could actually look at the fact, how do I cover crop for multiple years and still get some of those benefits of soil health, of the highly intensive market gardening style that, our farm was just bigger, and we needed to figure out a way to farm on more than 1 acre when we have 40 or 50 acres. So at this point in time, we go to 8 farmers markets a week during the summer, 4 year round. And then we also have a 40-member CSA, and we do a lot of wholesale to CSA aggregators, as well as to multiple different food banks. And so So yeah, I really have looked at how can we keep these ethos of farming at a small scale with soil health as the main goal, but grow more food and get more food to more people. We had with our farm, with all the markets we were going to, we had the people that wanted to buy the food. We had the market. And so it was, how do we scale into that, keeping that method? So here is a picture of, I'd say this is late October. This crop was usually, we try to get our rye crop in, or rye clover vetch in right about the beginning of October. So this field had winter. See, this is 3 years ago. This field had lettuce in it before that, and it had been multiple successions of lettuce. So I believe it was flailed it one, or I mean, yeah, flail mowed it, one disking, and then we planted it with the drill, and a really light disking. So it was just, the top. That's the nice thing about a disc, is you control the depth of it. You can disc at like 2 inches, or you can get 5 or 6 inches deep. So you can really control the depth and just get into that root zone, and really turn it into and then with a no-till drill, then you can clean it up and just make it look really nice and covered. And you can see here, that's a nice thing about multiple compartments in it, is you have all the rye coming up, but the clover it'll come up separately, and it'll come up afterwards, shortly after. But it's all planted in a way, that it's all going to come up, and you're going to have good emergence all the way around. So we would then, if this was field in the early spring, we were going to get into first, like Doug said earlier, we would want to get in and disc it really lightly back in February. There's going to be a dry period at some point. We want to get in and just turn the soil just briefly. But when it's about at this stage, you can see the rye, it's really soft and supple. It doesn't have any long ropes yet. This is really where you want to get into it, and just turn it once and let it be. And we would probably turn it one more time after that with the disc, and then the next step in our planting would be to go in with a spader. And it was right off the bat, Doug was like, yeah, this is our heavy tillage earlier. I was like, great, my heavy tillage is a spader. But I really love the spader comparatively to a rototiller in a lot of levels. The spader, one of the things it does, it has a reduction gear. So it's actually spinning slower than 540 RPMs. And so it's not pulverizing the soil at any kind of level that a rototiller is. Rototiller is being sped up, and it's really pulverizing, where a spader is just kind of it's just moving along. And it leaves a lot better soil aggregation than a rototiller does. And honestly, it leaves better aggregation than a power harrow does too. Down below it's different, but it has a nice aggregation. You got nice big chunks in there. It's really good for turning a bed if you're going to get back in there. Answering that question, we usually don't turn for a second crop. That's one of the things, is we're looking at soil health without using compost and the cover crops there. So usually it's one crop per season on a piece of ground, and then it's going to go back into cover crop. But let's say like this block right here, we want to plant 2 months of lettuce production into. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna disc the entire thing right off the bat, and then we're gonna take the second half of it and we're gonna plant buckwheat. And so the first half of it is going to get ready, for a month and a half to 2 months of planting of the lettuce and of the crop that's in that. And then the rest of it, we want to get the whole block ready, but I don't want to have to come in and deal with the rye, like Doug was talking earlier. I don't want to have to come in and every 2 weeks take out a little bit more for the next month's crop. I want to get the whole block gone, and the rye gone, I'm going to try oats actually next, and with our buckwheat, but we want to get the buckwheat on the second half. And so then we can easily change that over. And then there's about 3 weeks of planting that you're staling the beds. So you plant, you have about 3 weeks worth of room, and then you have the buckwheat for the rest of the season of lettuce. And in that middle 3 weeks, we're staling that bed, getting rid of weeds that might be coming up. and then go on from there. So this is not that same crop, but this is what, so that first picture was in mid-April, and then this is going to be about now, actually probably early June. And so this is what it's going to look like with once the Austrian peas get up to the level of the rye, right before we take the whole thing down with the flail mower. And this is so happy. I mean, you can see, I mean, I'm not exactly short, and that feels like up to here. So that's planted around October 1. And we try to get as much of our fields into this mix as we can. You know, we can't get everything into it. If it gets much later than October 15th, it's either going to be rye, or I'm still going to throw out rye until the middle of November, just because it's better than something than nothing, which that would usually, most fields are done by then. That's if an accident happens. But our overwinter crops, we will put in, we will underseed. We'll underseed clover. I'll show you here in a second where we would do that at. So here is, you know, we've disked a couple of times, and you can see this one has the cross disking on it. Usually three rounds of disking in, like Doug said, time. You know, over the course of a month and a half, it gets you to the soil where it's like this. And then you run the spader through, and then you plant. So much more conventional organic in a lot of ways. But the difference here is this field is going to be in production. This is year one. These are Brussels going in. So it's year one, heavy production. Year two, or a heavy feeder. Year two is a light feeder, which would be like a lettuce or something mild. And then year 3, 4, and 5 is back into cover crop production. And then we're going to go, and I have a picture later on. You can see the whole farm. And it's just like a clock. The clock just keeps going around, and the light feeders always follow the heavy feeders, and then 3 years of production and cover crop. And so you're still tilling the soil, you're still working the soil, but here, you know, the soil has 3 years to regenerate before we go back. And the other thing that I don't have a good picture of, but I've been thinking of a right term, and the term I like is mosaic planting. And what I mean by that is, we don't just have one big block in a third of a 100-acre field that's all soil, and then everything else is in cover crop. The blocks are slightly interspersed, and so they are surrounded to a certain degree by cover crops on either side. And so there's always biodiversity somewhat close. It's just the scale is different because it's 100 acres and our blocks are 10 acres each. So anyways, we disc, add our amendments, pelletized chicken manure. We follow we look at our, for our micros, we look at our soil test from Bill Black up and just follow along with that. We used to use a lot of compost, but not as much anymore. Mostly it's just so expensive anymore. And I don't know how much I trust the industrial compost anymore. There's more stories of PFASs and all sorts of plastics that I've seen in it. So we make our own compost, but that usually for these fields, it's cover cropping. It's lots and lots of cover cropping. So after planting, it's again more your traditional, but basket weeder. We really love this, the steerables. They're really fantastic for a 3-point. So you can put you can put your whatever implement you want underneath it, and the person sits in the back and steers it, and you have your sway bars loose, and so they can actually steer and follow the lines. And so that way you can use a regular tractor as a multi tool, and you don't have to have a special cultivation tractor. Also, what we found is a lot of the ACGs, Al-Chalmers Gs and whatnot, it's really hard to get basket weeders to fit underneath them. They're not really tall enough unless you get really old basket weeders, which again, hard to find. So first round of weeding in a lot of these situations, they're Brussels, I believe. Yeah, there's only 3 lines there. Is the basket weeder. And then round 2, about 2 weeks later, you're going to come back with your finger weeders. 1 to 2 weeks later, depending on the time of year. And then you might do that twice. And then the last one is just ridging. This is right after this passes, when if it's a overwintered crop, like kale going through the winter, overwintered, cauliflower, bok choy, or broccoli, where we would underseed right at this stage. So we would go through with a spinner on the back of your tractor, and we'd just spin clover in, ideally like a white Dutch clover. And then we would come through and we would run either the baskets or we would run the spade, depending on what tractor we have to do. And that basically plants the underseeded cover crop. Ideally you do this right before it rains. But that's been really big for all of our stuff going, because we grow a lot of kale all winter long. We grow a lot of the overwinter broccoli, cauliflower, all those crops. When they're done, they're just, if you're just going to leave them there, but I really want to have something underneath it. I want to have that soil already protected. And so clover seems to be about the best one for that interseeding we found. It stays low, it doesn't really interact, it doesn't really take away nitrogen or anything like that, and it's good for the soil later on. And it self-seeds. It's a great thing to have self-seed. You can get very few weeds without using chemicals and using tillage, or heavy, I don't know what you want to call it, spaders. I mean, so here's a little story. I live in Skagit Valley, and Skagit Valley grows 30,000 acres of potatoes, something like that. A lot of potatoes, most on the west side. It's really interesting to watch the potato farmers do the dance, I call it. And what I mean by that is, it's potato farmers, they'll do like 9 passes on a piece of ground before they plant potatoes. It's crazy how much they do. They're going to go in February, March. They're going to disc it. They're going to come back again and they're going to disc rip it. And when I say disc ripping, it's a 2-foot ripper. I mean, these are big 500 horse tractors. They're going to come back and they're disc it a third time. Then they're going to come and use 14-foot spader, like a very impressive machine. And then they might disc it again, or they might condition it. It depends on who the producer is. But then the dance happens. And the dance is the day they plant, there are 4 to 5 tractors out there. And these are big 150 horse John Deere tractors. And they have like 12-foot batwing rototillers on them. There are 4 to 5. And all 4 or 5 of those tillers are going to hit that same piece of soil, that same 40 acres. They're going to till it 4 or 5 times. They're turning it to bisquick. And the reason they do that is because our soil here in the Northwest is really good clay to a certain degree, but that clay also creates these balls. It's about the same size as a potato. And the potato harvesters can't tell the difference. And so if you are harvesting potatoes in the Skagit and you don't do that dance, I don't, our bins come out and it's about half dirt and it's about half potatoes. It's a fun little game we get to play. But so I agree with you, Doug. We are tilling a lot more than you guys are, and I commend you for being able to stay with it. But heavy tillage is like, I call it the dance. I don't know. It's crazy. You see all these tractors just doing circles. It's like they're line dancing. Anyways, so this had like 3 passes of the disc, and it had the spader, and then probably 5 passes with different implementing, with different sorry, I start saying it in Spanish in my head now, and it's really bad street Spanish because I didn't take classes. But it's all the different cultivation tools. I want to say Olympia herba, and that's not even close, but that's our crew's words for it. But just more farm photos of the large scale of it. So we grow a lot of kale. It's our #1 crop, but it's also a year-round crop, and going to markets all year long. At some point, January, February, March, there's not much left. There's kale. There's 5 varieties of kale that we grow. There's chard, there's collards, there's mustards, there's other refrigerator stuff. I found that if you take the really large super smelts kohlrabis and plant them way late, they are really hardy and they last, and you can sell them in like January and when they're about the size of a normal kohlrabi. Well, normal kohlrabis are dead at that point. Anyways, we find we grow a lot in the wintertime, we found. You know, we have a really mild climate here in the Northwest, and it's a great place to grow all sorts of winter crops. I didn't put as many market heat photos as you. I'm not trying to compete, but anyways, we're just all here having fun. We're learning from each other. I've had a great time with everybody today. So, okay. So here is a field block, and each one of these are approximately 10 acres. This is, and so this is what I talked about, like going around the clock. So this is from 3 years ago, actually. It's Google Earth from 3 years ago. And so you can see we had brassica production up in these two blocks, and so the heavies, and then we had potatoes and squash over here, and this block I found is absolutely perfect for winter production. It's high and dry and sandy, and it has easy access. So this block always has almost its own production for just overwintered crops. And then these other ones, where at this point in time, this is when we just started moving on to this farm, and the previous owners had a handshake agreement with this cattle rancher, and he actually had cows on all four of these, which I thought was going to be a really cool idea. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so great. We're going to move our chicken coops on here, and we're going to do all this stuff right. And he's like, and you know, his stocking rate was so low, and he's like, I don't want to do anything like that. I'm like, all right, sorry. You know, like these 40 acres, there was like 25 cows. And so like all was happening was weeds were coming up everywhere. They were picking what they wanted. We had the cattle pass, very traditional. And so we, you know, I let the handshake go until that year was up. And then we took it back. And the next year, the next spring was where that photo was taken with the cover crop up here, looking all across that. And so, yeah, then last year we were in this one. We slowly moved. So heavies were here, and so last year heavies were here and lights were there, and this was in cover crop. And then this year heavies are here and here. Like, you know, it just keeps moving. The heavy feeders are ahead of it, the light feeders are behind it, and then there's like 40 acres behind that are in the cover crop. Let's see, like I said, we try to do the buckwheat in between. Let's say that, you know, this is way expanded, but let's say like part of this block was all in broccoli and part of it was all in cauliflower. And so in the middle section, as those two successions move together, that would be all the buckwheat. Another one that we've been doing last year, and I wish I had good pictures of it, but I don't. I had a really good success with that. Can I say one more thing? Okay. Last year, what we did, and we're doing it on a much larger scale this year, is we did, for an area that had some big weed pressure, is sorghum Sudan grass mixed in with cowpeas and the vetch and clovers, and it works so well. Where those grow really big and really tall, and the vetch and clover stayed down but stayed there and kept growing roots. And we were able to get one good mowing off of it, and then it started to grow back again before it winter killed last winter. And then, you know, through all that stubble, we had, you know, in the springtime, then we had a really nice stand of clover and vetch. Anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about this, but it's fine. Mostly we found that it's a great addition, but it doesn't add enough nitrogen. It's, as economics would call it, it's an externality, but it's a really important one to the farm. Anyways, I will go on. Any questions? And feel free to get a hold of me at any time up there. I love to talk about this and throw ideas, spitball ideas. I'll be honest, you're my guinea pigs on this. I'm going to go home now and I'm going to add a whole lot to this and make it a lot better. And maybe at Tilth, I'll give it to you again and it'll be a lot better. So you are my guinea pigs, though. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay, so Thank you. Great question. The question is, how do I kind of sprinkle in, I got chickens and then really talk about it here at the very end for those on out online. The question is how do I incorporate chickens into that cover crop or into that cover crop rotation? And so, like I said briefly, we have a 4 or a 5 year cover crop rotation. Ideally 4, I do 5 if I have really, really weedy or subsoil or par soil conditions. But so we do the cover crops because of the 9120. We do the chickens in that 2 year cover crop block. I don't try to incorporate them anymore and like, oh, I'm going to put chickens in the spring and plant fall broccoli. I've done that game and it's just too stressful. There's too many other things. There's too many other externalities right here. So no, what we do is we put it into a section, and sometimes, yes, we have to go in and mow it. Ideally not, but you know, it's early in the spring, it's easy. You keep moving and you try to move fast and get ahead of it. And eventually you have to go in and mow it. And we use a flail mower. We also have about a 75-year-old John Deere a conditioner. It's great. So either one of those work pretty well. That really tall crop, you do need about 75 horses, I feel, or you're going to bog, even maybe more. It's going to get bogged down. But what we do with the cover with those chickens is we keep moving them in that cover crop. Ideally, you know, we don't want to mow it, but we have to a certain degree. That's why was really excited to work with my neighbors. I was like, all right, we're going to get cows in here. We're going to really do this right. I'm still working with another neighbor about that. Maybe it'll happen. Like, give me a year. But they stay on the back side of that rotation. And so we just, I mean, I could go, I didn't put any slides in here, but I have hundreds of slides of chicken raising and husbandry in that regard and the best ways to do it. But yeah, we just move them on the other side of that and just keep mowing it every couple of weeks. Any other questions? That's a really great question. Do you want me to repeat that one, or do you want to? Yeah. So the question is when I talk about the mosaic planting and that I'm not planting all in one giant block, do I find that easier so I don't have to follow this a strict cover crop rotation? And I still try to follow a pretty strict rotation. And that's just because I live, you know, in Skagit Valley. We have 80,000 acres of veggies, and there's a lot of seed crops, and there's a lot of Brussels around me. So there's a lot of pests in the air, and you have to keep a really heavy rotation with my brassicas in particular for clubroot and the loopers and whatnot. But what I've found I do is, so let's just say, I kind of hit on it briefly, but let's just say, so this block right here has 6 irrigation roads in it. And so on irrigation road 1, I'm going to do broccoli going one way and broccolini going the other way. And then irrigation road number 2, we're going to do cauliflower going one way and cabbage going the other way. And there's going to be this gap in the center between those where it might be 3 months before those 2 successions actually merge. And so in the middle of that section, we'll plant, you know, a 50-foot breaker of the buckwheat. And so the buckwheat, and we'll do that early. And so the buckwheat will come on and we'll have this break there. On top of that, then we'll usually leave these big sections on these lines as long as we can, and we'll come back later and do it. I still want to have a pretty good rotation where I know that I'm not hitting areas with brassicas in particular for 4 years. That's part of the idea for 4 years is I want to keep away. I don't want brassicas. I don't want to ever come back to brassicas for 4 years. And ideally, if I could get away with, you know, set this block, we come back 4 years later with brassicas. If I could, I want to get as much time as possible, because being an organic producer, I don't have any tools in my tool belt. If the cabbage loopers really get in place in that soil, there's not much I can do. Now, the really big potato guys we know of, they do Brussels first, potatoes second. And you would think it'd be the other way around, but they do it that way because they spray the potatoes so much that they'll kill everything. that, you know, they kill everything. They just, I mean, potatoes, they nuke the ground. It's crazy. Is there another one online? Okay. Okay. No problem.